With over 400 celebrity interviews and tons of pop culture nerdiness, Too Opinionated is a safe haven for your inner geek. Find us at meistercon.com or on YouTube under MeisterCon Pod. And please subscribe. It would really help us out. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got writer-director Timothy Stevens with me. So welcome, Timothy.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Man, that is an epic facial thing you got going on there. I'm very jealous of that.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, well, so we could talk about this later, but, I play a role in the Ghost Lights, and I actually shaved all my facial hair off, including eyebrows for that. So I'm kind of rebelling the opposite direction. I actually, immediately after we wrapped the film, I grew mutton chops because I just wanted to have as much hair as possible. So, but I trimmed it back a little bit. Mutton chops were a little intense for the summer.
Yeah, but that's impressive. You got a good, it's difficult, I think, more difficult to grow a good mustache than it is a good beard.
Sure.
I'm impressed with it.
Well, thanks.
Well, that's very distinct. That's good work. That's good work. And you look like you've got the type of beard that you could grow it long if you wanted to.
Yeah, probably. I've never really done it long, like ZZ Top longer or something. But about the longest I've ever had is about like this. Except when I had it here, but it wasn't any longer than that.
Mine just grows. It just gets bushy, but it doesn't get long. It just.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you could comb it out, and if you treat it with like beard oil.
I think that's it. I'd have to treat it. I hadn't done that. So I was really excited to get a chance to talk with you. We actually watched the Ghost Lights in studio this weekend. So we had, we're lucky enough. We've got a pretty good viewing area. So I had some of the family over, and we watched.
Oh, cool! That's awesome.
Really good movie. I'm a sci-fi fan, but it had some good twists, and it's one of those movies at the end of it makes you think a little bit. So I thought it was really well done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, what we were going for. Some of my favorite films, end in such a way that you're sort of forced to sit back and go, what was that about? Which I think, it's what movies should do. Like I'm not really into movies that tie it up in a nice, neat bow and tell you what to think, good art should never tell you what to think. You should draw your own conclusions and your own interpretations. So
I think there was a period, like when I was growing up, especially, everything had a nice, clean, happy ending. It was all tied up in a nice little bow right at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I always remember thinking, maybe it'd be nice if it wasn't so, it was a little messy at the end. It wasn't, because life's not, that way. It doesn't always end on a happy note or with a nice little, tied up ending. Life's not like that. So why are all the movies and TV shows like that? So I like that when we run into that, where it kind of leaves it where you're like,
yeah.
That's
cool,
pretty good. It made you think. So the consensus from the group, we had, I think, 9 or 10 of us there this weekend. The consensus was very well done. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It was it's a small movie, admittedly, but any film, even small ones, take a tremendous amount of work. And for us to get to the end and it be coherent and something that's watchable, I think is that's the most I can ask for at the end of a film, because it's so hard to put together.
Yeah, for sure. And so we got to talk about the Ghost Lights, and we'll do that. But let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about, what made you want to get into entertainment, and why did you choose to go the writing director type route as opposed, say, to acting, or have you also done acting?
Yeah. For me, it really started with just a love of classic cinema. Some of the first, obviously I watched, I grew up in the early 90s, so I was watching Toy Story and Lion King and Little Mermaid and all that. But
Yeah.
really the first time that I watched a film that I would consider a piece of art was like early silent horror movies like Nosferatu and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and the Golem. These were all like German expressionist, black and white, really
Yeah.
spooky.
That's like, so I mean, Nosferatu maybe not so much now, because it's kind of made a comeback. But those
Yeah.
other ones, that's some deep cuts.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, but I feel like, my mom was a professional photographer, and she actually had to take some film courses as part of her education.
Right.
And at least at that point, that was like the stuff that you watched. If you wanted to learn about cinema, you learned about where it came from.
Yeah.
Because they were doing crazy stuff, like especially in Nosferatu. They did in-camera tricks to make things like they had like a phantom wagon that comes to pick up the
Right.
character that eventually gets trapped by Nosferatu. And they were doing like crazy effects in camera to make it appear transparent, and so all of this is very easy now. At that point they were inventing these things. And it was really those films that kind of set me on this path of saying like, hey, I want to do that, because
Yeah.
this is different. And obviously it was very gothic. It was like gothic horror, and really probably the first gothic horror films, because they were following in the steps of Frankenstein and Dracula, the books,
Sure.
this kind of 1800s gothic horror. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been on a quest to do. And I've kind of fell into interest in the paranormal, looking for inspiration, and that's sort of how I found myself drifting in the last couple of years towards kind of UFO, aliens, that sort of realm of
Yes.
science fiction. And it's all the nonfiction stuff that I have been really inspired by, that have kind of drawn me into wanting to create a film about this kind of there's a term, and I think it's been around for several decades, but a lot of people are using it now, which is called high strangeness. So it's a term for phenomena that kind of sits on the edge of everything. So it's like, it's aliens, it's ghosts, it's poltergeist, it's Bigfoot,
I like
it's all
that.
of this stuff. And it's the X-Files did this really well, where it was just kind of this sense of weird stuff is everywhere if you look for it. That's definitely like what the Ghost Lights is kind of leaning into, is this sort of high strangeness. It's almost it's like a mood, if you had to think about it. It's not a genre, but it's definitely a mood of spooky science fiction.
Yeah. No, I think that's really terrific. At what point growing up did you realize that you could write a little bit? And what made you choose like more scripts instead of just a novel?
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely started trying to write, so as a kid in elementary school, I tried doing some novel type stuff. Like I think a lot of like young writers set out, I'm going to write a novel straight off the bat, right?
Yep. Not
And
all that easy.
yeah, and I was really into Lord of the Rings at that point, so I was trying to write something that was kind of like high fantasy type stuff with
Yeah.
elves and dwarves and wizards and all that. And I found out that was very hard. It's still really hard. I've written some like short fiction since then, and that's a little bit easier. But yeah, I think once I kind of fell into the filmmaking thing, I wanted to know everything about it, and then pretty soon I learned that okay, films come from screenplays. Somebody has to write a screenplay. And I've always been a control freak. I'm a control freak now, and I've been a control freak since I was a kid, I'm pretty sure. So I thought, well, I'm not going to be happy having someone else write a screenplay for me. I'm going to write a screenplay. And I think the first thing I tried to write was a feature film, again, super ambitious. And this was like in the 8th grade, a feature film adaptation of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
And to this day, there's not been a book accurate retelling of that in movies. There's like one made like in the 30s, and it's pretty far-fetched. It's kind of like how Dracula the movie is a great movie, but it's not really that close to the book, and Frankenstein is way the hell off course. So I thought I'm going to make the period accurate, book accurate version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And we shot a scene of that, but I ended up writing a lot more of that than I could possibly make as an 8th grader. And I think, I got hooked at that point. I figured out, okay, I need to, someone told me you need to go read scripts. So I started downloading scripts off the internet, that I could find, and reading those and trying to figure out, okay, what are the format? Okay, I'm going to use Microsoft Word to create all the alignment and do everything right, which I, is not recommended. And eventually, kind of figure out the correct software and everything. Yeah. So, and I just really enjoyed the, screenplay is very active, and it can be very literary if you want it to be, but in its base form, it's a really quick, active, snappy, push the plot forward sort of mode of writing, and it can be a lot of fun to write. Like when you're in a groove on writing a screenplay, like it just pops, and it's hard to do that in a prose format, because eventually you've got to like stop and like look at the last like 30 pages that you wrote and go like, oh, I need to course correct a little bit.
Right.
With the screenplay, if you're in the mood and you kind of have a good outline, you can just pop through it. And the Ghost Lights, I think I wrote in 5-6 days.
Really?
Which is quick for me, granted, but there again is something like, I think like what's the story they wrote? Scarface in like 14 hours or something. Right. Like, De Palma just did a bunch of cocaine and like sit next to the pool with a typewriter, and the first draft that he put out, that was it. And, so, obviously you don't have to do cocaine to be a decent screenwriter, but it does show you what the kind of mode of writing, and, and it could be a lot of fun to do that. So
if during the writing of the Ghost Lights, if you were smashed out of your mind, could you have gotten the time down from 6 days to like 6 hours?
Maybe. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm always drinking a lot of coffee, so I was definitely had like caffeine going, but who knows, man. I try not to write, intoxicated in any way. Although I have
probably smart.
Yeah, although one time I did a short film where the main character was like drunk on a bunch of bourbon while like doing a whole bunch of art to like summon this entity, and I kind of did some research to get into that. But when I write, if I don't write with a clear head, I probably just won't write. I'll just sit there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's most of us are like that. Yeah.
I mean, unless you're like Hunter S. Thompson, and he was, smashed out of his mind 24/7, and wrote some great stuff. So, it works for some people.
Works for some people.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's talk about the Ghost Lights. What is the Ghost Lights about? What's the story?
Yeah. So it follows a young woman. Her name is Alex, and she is from Dallas. Her father was a journalist, and she went off to New York City to follow the big city journalist dreams. And she comes back home after a couple of years after the death of her father, and they've grown apart. They've been estranged, and she's looking through his now mostly empty house and finds a weird cassette tape that says October 15th, 1978. I actually, hold on a sec. I've actually got it right there.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, very nice.
That's the prop, and this is the actual it's not a Walkman, it's a General Electric.
It looks like a Walkman.
Yeah, it's like late 70s.
Very nice.
So she, sticks this in here and has to remind herself how it works because it's been a long time. And then she begins listening to this interview of her father interviewing this man in this ghost town of Terlingua out in far west Texas, who has had a close encounter and a very traumatic encounter with these lights. Something has happened to him. It scarred him terribly. So kind of in an effort to connect with the memory of her father, sort of like after death, make amends with him, and to like discover the truth behind this weird story she hears on the tape. She sets out on this journey 700 miles across the entire width of Texas to discover the truth. And as she's going, she listens to the tapes and weird things start to happen. And she maybe feels like she's being pursued by somebody or something. And then, of course, eventually she gets to Terlingua and, has her own close encounter. So, but I won't say anymore. That would give away too much.
Yeah, I like the fact that it had supernatural and like alien elements.
Again, with the high strangeness, like that's the hallmark of high strangeness, is that you begin to we all want to categorize things no matter what it is, but in the paranormal, there's a lot of, it's really hot right now. The TV shows made it really hot, and and we've tried to like say like, okay, it's Bigfoot, it's ghosts, and it's aliens, and I don't know what else, but those are the things, and they never bleed over. And things get really interesting when they get blurry and start to kind of cross. So that's definitely something I'm trying to do in this is, it creates kind of a sense of unease a little bit,
right.
If we can't categorize it, if it's not black and white, if it's not this or that, we kind of start to get anxious about that.
There's definitely some anxious moments in this movie. There's times where you feel a little uneasy because you're not sure what's coming.
For sure, what's happening or what it is exactly. And I think that's what Alex is going through, because she kind of has, she's a, I don't know if I call her an atheist, but she doesn't believe in these things. So she's not like the crazy Bigfoot guy going off into the forest, like she has no sense that any of this could have any reality. And so when
she's more of a Scully than a Mulder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah. She, pure skeptic. But I think for Alex, like, it's not even on her radar. She's never gone out of her way to like find these things. So, and I often find like with this sort of thing, like if you're not looking for it, that's when it finds you. So that's what's happening with her, is she's not looking for it, and she gets thrown into the middle of a very strange vortex of weirdness.
Yeah. Really, really good. So once you decided, okay, I've got this script, I'm going to make this movie, then how do you go about getting funding for the movie? How do you go about getting a cast for the movie? Because it was a really good cast. I thought they did a really good job. How did you go about all of the things that go into actually getting you to the point where you can film it?
Yeah, so my business partner and I, John Francis McCullagh, he actually plays the role of Arthur, the father in the film. So he and I have been developing scripts and creating budgets for scripts for years now. They've all been kind of expensive. I never like start trying to like look for money until I know how much I need. And they've all been really expensive. And we kind of got to the point in early 2020 where we realized that, at least for a little bit, no one has money for us, especially
it's a tough time.
Yeah, and Hollywood shut down. I think investors were kind of saying like, we may not be funding films for like years, no one knew. So, we really asked ourselves like, okay, like is this the end of the world? Is this the apocalypse? I don't know. This virus could kill us. We weren't sure. Like hell are we going to die having not made our first film? So, so we kind of put our heads together and drew some 401k and made the movie out of our own pocket. And it is small. We wrote it with a budget in mind, so I thought I had about $7,000 to $8,000 to spend. So I wrote a film that I could work with on that. And what helps though is that the latter half of the film happens in Big Bend in West Texas, and
Yeah.
these are epic landscapes that you don't need to spend a lot of money. It looks great
Yeah,
from
it
the
was
get-go,
terrific.
right? It's
Yeah.
beautiful without having to
It was
do
well
much.
shot.
Yeah, thank you. So self-funded, and then I actually wrote the parts for the people. So I always
Very
had
nice.
Arthur is being John Francis McCullagh, Katreeva Phillips. I wrote it for her. I knew her from a short film that we did years back. And then Billy Blair, he's kind of our name actor. People would recognize him from Machete. I think he's in both Machete
Oh
films.
yeah, 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 yeah.
He's in both Sin City films. I think they're kind of like
Yeah.
background roles. And he was in Rob Zombie's Three from Hell. So anyway, basically action movie dude. And I met him
Oh yeah.
years ago, and asked him like, "Hey man, you do all these action movies. Is there another genre or another type of role you've always wanted to have?" And at the time, is nearly a decade ago, he said, "Well, I spend a lot of time firing guns and yelling at people. I want something really quiet where I can be contemplative and I can like emote and
Yeah, you
and
can
maybe
act.
I can, and not that it doesn't take acting to be over the top,
That's right. That's right.
but it's just different." And he was kind of getting typecast in this sort of role, and I think since I talked to him, he's actually had a couple of roles where he got to do that. But I definitely, as I started to develop the idea of this kind of quietly scholarly gentleman who lives alone in far west Texas, and he grew up in this mining town, and he's kind of like all he knows, right? And he's been scarred. He really like has this emotional scars, like PTSD basically. What and he's Hispanic, so it all kind of fell together, and I was like, well, Billy, like this is his role.
Yeah.
And he really did. He pulled it off. It was a tremendous ask of him to do this, because he's basically a storyteller in the film, and he
He's
spends a lot.
really good. He's really
Yeah.
good in the film.
So he did a fantastic job, and I thought I might have someone play the villain, in budgetary reasons, and also like COVID, because we were trying to keep as few people with us as possible. So we all took COVID tests and then basically stayed in the same like Airbnb for a week. So it looked like I might hire somebody to play the villain, and it made more sense for me to do it. So
Yeah.
which was fun. I don't usually act, but it was a experience for me for sure.
I mean, if you're going to pick a role, though, don't you want the villain?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the mustache, so I like to play the villain role.
Did you take some of your love for those 30s movies and some of the special effects tricks that they did in those, and kind of, not necessarily that you took those tricks, but just that mindset that you could do a lot without a ton of money into special effects? Did you take that and kind of bring that to this film? Because I thought the effects were well done.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, practical effects are always better than digital, although we do a fair amount of digital effects in the Ghost Lights. But it's really important that if you're going to have some digital effects, that you ground things on some level when you're filming, because it is possible that if you've got like a flickering orb of energy, that you just do everything after the fact. You don't worry about lighting. You just, it all, you can paint it on your skin like Photoshop. But what I really wanted to make sure that we gave a sense of realism, because I do know that I've seen plenty of low budget films, and especially low budget horror films, that they don't think much about it. They raise a little bit of money on a crowdfunding campaign, and they pay a VFX artist to basically kind of put a Band-Aid, or a sticker
Right.
on top of their movie, and it doesn't look real. It doesn't look
Yeah.
grounded at all.
Yeah.
So we definitely, from practical lighting to making sure that we kind of thought about the color of light that might be in the effect, and actually had that color of light like on set so that we didn't have to fake it later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a really talented guy here in Denton actually that did that, and he actually, for the ghost lights, I think he actually used like those orbs that you do like contact juggling
Yep.
with. They're like basically they look like
Yep.
crystal balls, but they're made of like vinyl or something like that.
I never would have guessed that you were using those.
Yeah, so he photographed that and then shined light through it, and then basically made an object through which we
That's
could
clever.
manipulate, and it creates some real, because basically the marching orders I had for him was make it look like a black hole, with like a glassy black hole, so how light kind of bends around a black hole.
Yeah.
So he actually did that using real lighting effects, which I wouldn't have thought of that. There's ways he could have done it totally digitally, and he instead felt like it would be really smart to film a real thing that would actually refract light and bend light. So yeah, it turned out cool, and I was blown away when I got it back, because my biggest fear was having effects that looked fake.
Right. Yeah, you don't want the effects to mess up your movie.
Yeah.
And they definitely didn't. I thought they're that's why I asked. They seemed like they were really professionally done, which can be pricey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think we spent most, because we did a crowdfunding campaign to help pay for post-production. I think we spent most of the crowdfunding campaign on that guy and his effects, which we needed to. It was a kind of a linchpin for the movie. If we messed that up, it would, it takes you out. You start going like, oh, this looks like shit. And then you're
right.
And then you're not paying attention anymore. So
yeah, it kind of messes it up. I like the fact that the movie deals a lot with loss and guilt. There's a lot of those type of emotions, and working through that type of emotion, which I assume was intentional.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think like on a personal level, I've come to grips with the fact that I've had a lot of I don't know what the word is, like regret and things that I wish I had done differently in my life, and sometimes that has to do with relationships. And then 2020 of course happened, and it became very clear that some of those things might never be amended.
That's right. That's right.
And and now that's always been true, but it suddenly became like very apparent and likely that there's,
I think a lot of us went through those feelings.
Yeah, and it just became, and I started thinking about my own relationships, and like, have I done everything? Have I said everything that if they were to die tomorrow, have I done that? And that kind of is what we were already kind of working on the story. I already knew I wanted to do a film around the idea of ghost lights, because that is a real phenomena that happens in West Texas, but also all over the world. But I'm always looking for like the human element in ways that I can kind of put some heart beneath it. And that was, I mean, it was on a lot of our minds, but especially mine. Like I felt like from March to August, as we were developing this film, like that was my entire like world, making this film and going, are my relationships in order?
Well, it sounds like it's kind of cathartic.
It was, yeah, totally. And a lot of filmmakers do this. It's possible to make it too personal, so I always try to like keep it distant.
Right.
So I never treat a film like a diary, but every writer pulls from their personal experience for sure.
Yeah. So was Timothy the director hard on Timothy the actor?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. In fact, there's shots that are in the film that I wanted to take out, but purely because I disliked how I looked in them. But I knew if I took those shots out, it wouldn't make sense. So they're in there, despite how I feel about that. And of course, I hate the sound of my own voice.
We all do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just a common thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But oh yeah, totally very critical. But the way I make a film is that it's hard to take stuff out. I storyboard really well. I can show you here, like when I write a script, it's all,
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
put on a cork board. And so it's very hammered out before I ever like open Final Draft and start typing. So when we get into like editing stage, there's not much to remove because I kind of did that already with this process. So if there's something in there that doesn't work, that's not good because there's not much I can do about it at that point, and if I don't like how I look, well, I guess I'll just suck it up. Tough. It's fine. I'll deal with it.
So is there plans? Are you going, do you have plans for like continuing the story at some point? Are we going to see more in this world?
I don't think so. I mean, you certainly could, I think viewers at the end of the film could go, yeah, there could be more of this. But yeah, I'm not much for sequels. Like my co-producer, John Francis McCullagh, he does a lot of like martial arts action films. He actually knows Kung Fu and he's a stuntman, and all of his stuff works really well with sequels. So I'm totally on board for, like we have a movie coming out early next year that we shot right after the Ghostlight. It's called Dead Hand, and it's an action comedy with this like doomsday device.
Nice.
And there could totally be a Dead Hand too, like that, and that works great. But when I think about films like the Ghostlights, it would feel really weird and kind of like cheating to give people more, because I wrote the film to end like it ends with no explanation, and I don't want to like make something else that then explains it. That would be kind of
no, it makes sense.
The purpose.
But what if they come to you and they're like, we want to do the Ghostlights as a series?
Oh man, I might be open to that because when things become series, by the nature of the series, you have to change a lot.
That's right.
And there, when you think about films that, like the Vampire Chronicles, the Anne Rice books, they're making that into a series, and they're actually going to do Interview with the Vampire first, and then the plan is to kind of draw it out and do all of them, which there's like 8 or 9 books. And by the nature of a series, you kind of have to change stuff because you have to fill a lot more space than you do in a film. So I think I'd totally be open to that, but it wouldn't be about Alex. It would be a completely different storyline, and I might even change what the Ghostlights are in my head. But you have to if you're gonna play something out over 20 to 40 episodes, like you really
that's right.
You gotta think about the longevity of the story at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you know of anybody that wants to do that, I'm on board 100%.
Well, at least leave it open.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
possibility. Mm-hmm. All right, so I got one. I'm gonna pitch you an idea. So you seem like me to have a love for like the Victorian type of horror, or the almost like the Universal monster type of thing, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like if it has roots in classic horror and literature, I'm all for it. Yeah,
that's right. So here's the idea. So I'm giving you this one for free. So think, all right, think Penny Dreadful, but with like the local state monsters that we all have in every state. Like for West Virginia, we've got Mothman and the Flatwoods monster. Everybody hears about those.
Flatwoods that's creepy, man. The Flatwoods.
Yeah, it's a creepy one. But everybody has something.
Oh yeah.
There
Wait,
you
so
go.
you're from West Virginia? Is that where you're coming from? Oh man.
Yeah.
Dude, there is a series on Netflix. It takes place somewhat in Kentucky as well, but called Hellier. And it's about Hellier, West Virginia. It's like a mining town. And it's a paranormal documentary, and they go to Hellier looking for the Kentucky goblins. So it's
I've
Kentucky.
seen this
Kentucky.
show.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so spooky. And everything that happens in that is like the definition of like high strangeness. Like they set out looking for goblins, and by the end they're talking to like occultists, and they're trying to like summon ancient entity using like magic, and it all makes sense, and weird things start to happen where they're basically getting signs from the sky that are undeniable. It's out of
this
world.
Part of the country, we got all kinds of that stuff.
You got weird stuff. Well, you have the Mammoth Cave system, which I think there's like stuff in there that people don't know about.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
There are
that would not surprise me.
In the Mammoth Cave system that have never seen the light of day. They're just waiting to creep out and get us.
There's a lot of like you could do it in kind of with a Gothic vibe, I think.
Yeah, or like an American Gothic,
right.
Like something that kind of has that like like what's I don't know, there's several TV shows that have that kind of American Gothic vibe. The Southern Vampire one, I forget. True Blood, right? True Blood.
Oh yeah, True Blood.
All American.
There used
Gothic,
to be a show called American Gothic that of all people, Sean Cassidy of Hardy Boys, he was the writer.
Oh, cool.
On this show, and it starred Gary Cole, if you know Gary Cole from like Office Space and some of those, but it was really well done and creepy with that. But
I love this idea. I love it. It's a good idea. It's cool. I'm already thinking about, because you're right. It's all over.
It's all over.
Here in Texas, we have the boggy.
We haven't written about it. I mean, you get a few one-offs. Like there was a Mothman movie and stuff.
Oh sure, yeah.
But if you start tying them all, you could have it'd make a great series.
It would, yeah. Cryptids and all that weird.
Yeah. You could do some weird stuff.
Oh man, I like it.
So I know we got to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you about just real quick the mystery of the Batman.
Oh, the new one.
Yeah. I mean, did you do some work with that? Was it?
Oh, there was you're talking about the
like the series,
the web series,
web series,
yeah. So Ryan Bijan he's actually the editor character. Like you just hear him over the phone in the Ghostlights. He's actually the mastermind behind that. And he had this really cool idea that he would take the original 30s film noir detective Batman detective stuff.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
And basically he kind of cast it as like, hey, this used to be a thing, and it used to play on reels before movies, because they used to do that. They would show little shorts before movies back in the 30s. And that they were lost. The film reels were lost and then recovered and then restored. And this is the thing, So it's basically a fan film series done in like the 1930s.
It sounded really interesting. Did you work on that?
Yeah, it's all on YouTube. You can go see them now. And I play the role of, oh man, I can't remember the role. So there was a weird one-off character that
had a weird name, right?
The Mad Monk. So the Mad Monk was, and I think they're actually starting to pull it back into the zeitgeist of things, but he's basically a vampire who kind of presents himself as a cult leader, and I'm like his like sycophant sidekick. So I'm like the Igor type character. So I'm out, finding bodies for him to suck blood from, and victims and stuff like that.
I thought it sounded like a neat idea. That's why I read. All I did was see the name. I was like, well, I got to ask you about that. It sounds.
Go check it out. It's all on YouTube. It's towards the end he starts pulling Superman, and he does this cool thing where like half of it is in like Technicolor and the other half is in black and white.
That's neat.
Really, really neat. You know, I'm not as much of like a comic book nerd as that,
Yeah.
so I can never do personally write a series
Well,
like
that's
that.
what
because,
that's what caught my eye, because I am a comic book guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so that
Ryan
caught
is
my eye.
like such a kind of a master of all that. You know, he's read it all, and it just kind of sits in his head.
Yeah.
And he's one of those people that can write in that story and it work. I would have to do a lot of reading to get to that
of research on that. Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, Timothy, thank you so much for taking some time. The Ghost Lights, it's terrific. I thought you did such a good job on that, and your acting was pretty good in it.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, I'm not sure when this will drop, but August 26th, which from the day we're recording, that's this coming Friday. It releases on digital everywhere, so that's Tubi, Amazon Prime, Microsoft Movies, Apple TV, and a few other places as well.
That's exciting. Yeah, it's going to be everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere. And then we're working on the dates for this, but there's going to be a live Q&A premiere that's going to happen on the Terror Films YouTube channel. And then also Kings of Horror will happen a little bit after that. But I think that's going to be more like October season that they're going to do that.
Yeah, so, Halloween season. Yeah.
Yeah. So follow us on social media. Spectrograph Films is the name of our company. SPECTROGRAPH, Spectrograph. And you can go to our website, spectrographfilms.com, and we have a social rail down there. But that would probably be the best place to kind of keep in touch with us and find out, you know, when the live streams might be. And we kind of hope to have a few special screenings every once in a while in between now and then. You know, we want people to see it online, you should first, but you know, we might do surprise screenings here and there. So
have fun with it. Why not?
Yeah. And we will sell DVDs at some point soon.
So well, I was going to ask if you were going to have hard copies.
Probably later in the year we'll have some of that available. So we'll probably sell that on the website, I imagine.
Yeah, that's so terrific, and congratulations, because it's not easy getting something made, let alone actually getting it out there. That's
for sure.
That's awesome.
It's been a long time coming. You know, we shot this film fairly quickly, but it's been 2.5 years since we wrapped production on it. Almost 3, man. Yeah, 3, because we started filming in October of 2020. So I guess that's 2 years, 2.5, something like that. But
you're probably the only people filming in 2020.
You know, those of us that figured out how to do it were kind of ahead of the game, because Hollywood didn't film anything for like 2 years. So there's not a lot of Hollywood films coming out, but there's a lot of indie film coming out, because those of us that were smart and thought, okay, there's going to be a lack of films in the coming year. If we can do it and do it safely, you know, we're gonna fill a gap. Which and I think it's cool, because you know, indie film has kind of gotten, because of Netflix and all these original content producers, it's kind of, they've been shoved beneath the weight of content that's on streaming services. And there's a bit of a comeback right now, because we had our kind of moment in the sun, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So a couple quick things before we go. So we got the all the websites for the movie, The Ghost Lights. You know, where can we find you on social media? Is there somewhere we can go just to follow what you do next?
So you know, I operate mainly out of Spectrograph Films, so I do have personal social media, but I'm honestly just regurgitating what's on what's on Spectrograph. Although I am into Irish music, so if you go on my Instagram, you'll find me playing a mandolin. That's like purely hobby.
That's awesome.
It has nothing to do with film in the least.
Is that the only instrument you play?
No, that's a mandolin there. These are penny whistles.
Nice.
Which is, you know, like a Irish flute. I've got a keyboard over here. I've got a guitar right here. I also have a harp, a small harp, like a lap harp. And
you don't play any of the mainstream instruments. That's awesome.
No, I mean, I'm really into folk music. So,
Yeah,
whether it's
yeah.
Irish, I like bluegrass a lot. I'm really into like classic bluegrass, which all the instruments for the most part that play Irish music, you can also do bluegrass
That's
on.
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
okay, so my last one, you mentioned a new movie for next year. Do you have
Yes.
anything else that we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Yeah, so pay attention to Dead Hand. We're editing that right now. It's going to be probably finished in the next month or so.
No, yeah,
And
that's
then
exciting.
that's going to hit the film festival circuit. So watch out for that. It could, our website is a great place. We list all the film festivals that we're at.
Yeah,
So it could come near you, which would be really cool.
that would be.
And then we're also filming, and this is going to be a long kind of process because it's a documentary that's about a world famous goth club here in Dallas. And so that film is called Dark Sanctuary, and it's the story of the church, which is this almost 35 years, 33 years. Marilyn Manson hung out there, The Cure, the people from Nine Inch Nails, like
Oh wow,
just
okay.
massively famous people hung out there, not because they were performing, but because it was just such a cool place.
Yeah,
And so yeah, we're doing that story. It's about the community of people there as well, and kind of the bonds of friendship that
that's a fun.
forms. Yeah, so that it's going to be a bit because it takes a long time to do a documentary.
Sure.
So I think over the next year to year and a half, we'll have something hopefully for someone to look at. But it's a long dark path going down a documentary because you always find out something new that you want to follow up on. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, Timothy, best of luck to you and congratulations and thank you for the time. This has been great.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so that was the talented writer director Timothy Stevens. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I enjoyed the conversation. The movie is The Ghost Lights. It comes out Friday, the 26th. So if you're watching this, it's a couple days ago. It's worth your time. Really, really good and kind of thought provoking. Got some supernatural. Got some kind of alien, unexplained type of things in it that paranormal that I think you'll enjoy. So definitely check that out. The Ghost Lights. If you haven't done so yet, we can use your help with our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow that. It's MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything, but it's really a big help to us. We're barreling toward our 500th episode. I think today we dropped episode 443. We put out usually 4 or 5 episodes a week, and we have had the best guests. So episode 443 was the cast from the movie from the 80s, The Monster Squad, was actually in studio with us, and we were able to interview them and post that. So you can check that out along with hundreds of other just amazing interviews. During this one, we talked a little bit about the X-Files. We've had several of the cast from the X-Files has been on the show. So just a lot of good material that you can find on our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod. And you can also find the audio and video versions on our website, meistercon.com. So check that out as well. If we're doing anything in studio, like watching the Ghost Lights or talking to the Monster Squad, that'll be on the website. If we're going to a convention, if we're going on location, all that'll be on the website, meistercon.com. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.